a form in the back of the room and submit that to the board secretary, so we make sure that we get you called up here when we have public forum. So again, didn't mean to cut the conversation short. Just wanted to let you know about that, and we'll start here hopefully promptly at 6 o'clock.
I do. I do a lot better than the other things. Golfing over I got a few of my coming here.
Thank you everyone for coming this evening. I do have 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started. We do have some students coming in, so please make room for everyone. We'll get some chairs here as well. So we do have a quorum of the board, so I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. The meeting, as always, is conducted under the provisions of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act, which is published in the back of the room. We'll start this evening with public forum, as we always do. Just a couple of reminders on public forum. If you're looking to speak, ask that you fill out one of these forms and help it find its way up here so we can call you forward. We do ask that you come to the front of the room to share your thoughts. We have a microphone up here. We want to make sure that you're heard. This is a time for you to speak and the board to listen to your comments. As a rule, the board generally doesn't engage in discussion or answering of questions so that we don't get into topics that haven't been posted on the agenda and cause us to, again, run afoul of that Open Meetings Act. But rest assured, we are interested in your feedback. If you do have questions, we'll make sure that we try to get those questions answered by the board or an appropriate administrator. So you will have 5 minutes. I have tried to give hand signals to folks. That tends not to work very effectively since people are kind of working off of prepared comments. So this evening, when you have a minute left, I will say 1 minute. I might say that while you're talking. That's not intended to be rude, just to let you know where you're at. And when you reach 5 minutes, I'll ask you to bring your comments to a conclusion. So with those ground rules, I think we're ready to get started. And I could apologize in advance if I mispronounce names, but Carol Dussel-Sermon, I would invite you forward.
I was hoping I was going to be first, but I guess
Oh,
I am.
sorry. Thank
That's
you,
okay.
Carol.
I guess I just want to address the board as far as what I saw in here and I went to one of the meetings up at the high school. I guess I feel like a little bit that the board is kind of taking, or the school, taking the votes that we, for the school, like for granted, like, okay, we've always had our bond issues passed, we've needed the growth, and it's just gonna be an automatic. And I think we need to make sure that it's making sense for what we're doing. Do I think that there's growth in our district and we need some new facilities? Yeah, I do. Do I think that all the things that I saw in here are needed and that we're doing a good job? Honestly, I really don't. We didn't insult anybody. We spent money on environmental studies. We spent money on all sorts of things that I have to go, how many more teachers could we have in the classroom for what we did that? And that's, to me, what our goal is to educate the students in our classrooms and get them the best thing that they can get, the best education that they can get. And I'm less concerned about trying to impress our neighbors in Elkhorn and Gretna than I am on getting our students educated and doing what makes sense. The economists say, the ones I've been hearing, we're going into a recession. We're at all-time high for building costs. So I think we have to look at what we're doing and have it make sense. In this brochure, it says the pool that is proposed, or it might be one of the options on there, is 9.1 million, but at the PowerPoint, it was 12 to 13.3. That's kind of a big difference at my checkbook. I mean, that's a lot of difference. And then what are the costs that go with that? What are the operating costs? What are the extra insurance costs? What are the extra air conditioning due to humidity? What happens when we get mold in places that we don't want it? We have coaches, uniforms, busing, all those kind of things that I think it's not just the cost. And I know we started a tennis program and we don't have a permanent place for them. But again, on this brochure, it says where you are proposing potentially spending 3.5 million, so 30 to 40 kids can play tennis. Now, do I think it's a great lifetime activity? Yes. But that's kind of a lot of my checkbook to pay for, plus the cost of the teams and all that kind of stuff. So I guess I'm just asking that we do some common sense things that, so we can educate our students, but so that we aren't trying to take all the money out of everybody's wallets, because I think it's harder. And I think we have to do what makes sense. I question the line item that's for, it says, it's for the tech, like in my day it was shop, for those kinds of things. And that's listed as a separate line item, not in the school. My question is, would we consider building the school without those programs in it? Because that, to me, would help a lot more kids get good paying jobs and educate them than tennis court or swimming or something like that. Like, I think that we have to look at what makes sense in our education. I love the activities. My kids were extremely active in school. But again, the education, I think, has to come first. And then the other one that was on that kind of surprised me is the HVAC, roof, and flooring. Do I know that all that stuff wears out? Yes, it does. Wears out at my house. I'm sure it wears out everywhere else. Are we putting reserves back to replace those things, or are we just waiting for the next bond issue when we have major expenses to come out? At my house, I have to budget for those things. So I guess I'm asking the board, what has been done in the past, and are we doing that now? Because we know it's not a if they're gonna break, it's a when, but they're probably not all gonna break at the same time. And there's not, and this might just be one example of that, but are we putting some cash aside for when those big expenses happen so that we have money to cover it and we're not putting that in as a bond issue item, because we need the money? My last thing is, I would be curious too, like my tax valuation has went up, and I'm guessing half the people are all in this room in the last 5 years have big increases. So that means the school is obviously getting more money because that's a portion of what that valuation goes towards. So the school's getting more than the normal 3, 4, 5% that they can raise. What's happening with that extra money that's going there? Thank you.
Thanks, Carol.
Thank you, Carol. Next is Bill Bone. Good evening, Bill.
Oh, I guess I just have a simple question. Has the Bennington Public Schools signed a contract to purchase the land on the landfill next to the landfill?
Again, typically we don't answer questions in public forum. However, I'm going to defer to Dr. Hawk here, since this is a question that came up several times in our public forums, for a clear answer to that question.
The resolution that was passed by the board did allow the executives to go through with the contract. At this point in time, there is a motion and an agenda item later to rescind that, and that is on the agenda later this evening. So there was a motion and it was passed to execute, but that does not mean it was executed.
So you're saying the contract is not written off?
There is a motion this evening to rescind that resolution that was done at the last meeting.
So the resolution resulted in a contract being.
It did not.
Well, if that's the case, I'll yield my 4 minutes left. I won't go into all my reasons why I think that site should not be considered. So I guess I can, and everybody else here that's concerned about that site, we can be rest assured that that will not be considered.
Again, it's on the agenda, and I would encourage you to stick around to see how that agenda item is addressed.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill.
I will say, we do support the bond. Yeah, not on that side. Okay, thanks.
Thank you for your comments.
Bill.
Okay, Robert Kaminsky, I believe is Robert.
Good evening to the board and to the public. So thank you for the rules of the road up front. So I was trying to jot some down so not to take any time. And I want to say it's great to see the students that are here. So my request to the board is to delay this bond decision for at least 6 months, to allow enough time for thoughtful and deliberate debate and discussion throughout the community. The taxpayers only received last month a 90-minute overview if you attended just one session, and there was little time for Q&A outside the breakout sessions, and no time for community debate at large. As the lady before me said, we're in a time of inflation, and a number of economists have said we have entered or are now in a recession. The average taxpayer cannot afford another hit to their already shrinking take-home pay. The gas pumps, the grocery stores are impacting all of us. A rush decision on 125 million up to 150 million is too much to ask at this time. let alone they asked for 3.5 million for the tennis courts, or 9+ million for a swimming pool. This does not seem to be in touch with where we are today. I will tell you, in the 2 sessions I did attend, the July sessions, there was considerable pushback on both the cost and the location. There was also a request to consider options, good options, that what it would, to meet the general intent, whatever we could do up until increasing our taxes. Those have not been presented. We just can't continue to throw money at an issue and expect, the taxpayers to continually provide. I want to take into account for those folks that do not have children at the public school, and I think all the community wants to support, especially the STEM part of it. But we have a lot of retirees, empty nesters, folks who are homeschooling or private schools. This is going to impact them exponentially. So last month I see as a start, not as the end all. And it is my belief the board's intention was to have good, deliberate stakeholder engagement with the community, with those taxpayers. If my intention, what I believe is correct, we can't have a bond issue this November. There's just not enough time. We just started the discussion. All the input, the survey data that was collected, the comments from the breakout sessions, those haven't been collated, those haven't been, maybe that'll be discussed tonight, but in not enough time to go back for thoughtful, deliberate discussion. And we need that. So my request to this board is to postpone any bond issues so that the community can be heard. Again, I appreciate the doctor. I think it was a well-run session. The 2 of the 3 that I attended, but they were just the beginning and understanding the time limitations. You could not have good debate, spirited debate. We need to open those up. We need to extend the time frame. Again, $125 million to 150. That's too much to ask from the general public. And we all want to support our kids, but I want to look at other creative ways to do that, whether it's through trailers or portables, I think as the doctor said, other options. But I just ask, we are moving too fast on this and we can't afford another bond. I'd like to thank the board and the public for their time. Thank you.
Well, everyone kept to a tight 4 minutes this evening. So is there anybody else who would like to address the board in open forum this evening? Gary, welcome. If you would introduce yourself, I would appreciate it.
Gary Sather, I live at 209 North Holly Street. I've been a citizen of Bennington since 1970. The idea that local history is the basis for understanding people. In 1973, Bennington and many area school districts and communities were threatened by a Corps of Engineers project called Dam 3A, which would have really destroyed the tax base of Bennington and many other communities. We were fortunate that the Corps of Engineers took that project back. But we were under attack for a long time. Now move forward to the late 80s. I can't remember exactly what year it was, but where the dam is now for the lake project, somebody wanted to build a feedlot there. Now, if any of you ever drove through Gretna, when they had a high school right across the street from the feedlot, it was something that really dampened any progress in that community, so it went away. In 1988, 89, Bennington was threatened again, this time by BFI, who wanted to build a landfill a mile north of Bennington city limits. Now, you wouldn't have any of the beautiful things you have in this community right now if that had gone through. So I assume that the landfill issue, any attempt to build near that, should have been a done deal. It shouldn't be something we have to fight again and again and again. So anyway, thank you for your time, and I wish you luck, and I do support the bond issue. So I support that. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else like to speak in open forum this evening? Hearing none, then we will proceed with our business agenda, which begins with the consent agenda this evening. That includes the approval of this evening's agenda, the approval of minutes from the Monday, July 11 special hearing, joint city district meeting, regular meeting, and the July 18 special meeting, presentation of August bills, and resignations and hires. I do request this evening that the payment to Prairie Construction be removed for separate consideration. Allison, any thoughts on bills this evening?
Heather's good to jump in as well. Heather and I had bill review this month, lots of expenses associated with opening the new schools. A lot of those items coming out of the budget, everything from activities to classroom items, getting the buildings ready to go. So that would be the big takeaway for me this month.
Yeah, I would agree. Thanks, Allison.
Any other notes or questions on the consent agenda? Jody, please call the roll.
Second. Motion in second.
Heather, second.
Sorry, I missed that. Thank you, Heather.
Allison?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes. We do have an item for separate consideration, which is the payment to Prairie Construction. I asked for this item to be removed for separate consideration because the project is behind schedule. Last month, I chose not to vote in favor of paying Prairie. I would recognize that the payment to Prairie is for work already completed. So I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the payment to Prairie Construction.
Second. Heather, thank you for the second. Any discussion?
Kara.
Oh, Kara. Let me get my seconds worked out here soon.
Understand.
Any discussion? Jody, please call the roll.
Valerie?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Mark?
No.
Allison?
Yes.
Tim?
No.
Motion carries. Now we'll proceed to our reports. We always start with administrator reports, and we'll begin with elementary this evening. Again, a reminder to administrators to please introduce yourself as you begin your report.
I'm Allison Evangelisti, principal at Pine Creek Elementary. We had our kindergarten roundup come in August 1st and 2nd to all 5 elementaries, even Stratford. Got to go in their home school, so we have some pictures of our newest students entering the school. The teachers and students had a good 2-hour session where they got to get to know each other, play games, do some crafts, and just get excited for school. We'll all be hosting our back to school night on Tuesday, the 16th of August, where families can come meet their teacher, put stuff in lockers, start the school off right. Any questions?
Thank you.
I do have one, I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Evangelisti, I appreciate it. I'm wondering, I hate to put you on the spot, is there a quick math on the enrollment on kindergarten? across our elementaries. And I did see the individual numbers, I just couldn't find the total.
We do, if I may answer
That's
that.
really an unfair pop quiz.
I can't have it in my head.
If I can help, Ms. Evangelisty, we estimated about 350 to 360, we're approximately 30 short of that. And I do have some information later in the agenda that will add to that.
Thank you, I will look forward to that.
We have our first arm wrestle over who does the middle school report this month. Does that mean is Rutgers the winner or?
Definitely the winner.
There we go.
Hi, I'm Renee Rucker. I'm the principal at Bennington Middle School. Our summer was really exciting. We had Jump Start for our incoming sixth graders at both middle schools. I'm sure Mr. Hopkins was excited to have kids in their building and give them a glance at the building. We also have registration August 1st and August 2nd for both buildings. We had quite a few students in. We had over 85% of our students attended registration days. And then summer tip grants, we were really excited that staff was able to work together to work on curriculum. They were able to do some school improvement pieces just to get ready for the upcoming school year.
I'm Sean Hoppus, I'm the principal at Bennington South Middle School. As you can see, we very similar had jump started registration. This was the last time we opened Bennington Middle School, we were not able to get kids in for those events, so this was a big deal getting kids in. I think parents and families, and especially students appreciated that. They were excited to get in and find their lockers and find their way around the building a little bit. The other thing I just want to highlight is just all the behind the scenes people. Like, I think we all take it for granted sometimes that just technology's going to work, the fields are going to look great, the stuff's going to get ordered, schedules are going to get created. There's just been a lot of heavy lifting behind the scenes, and I could have listed a lot more names. Those were just the ones on that particular day that really made an impact and just helped in so many different capacities. I think I've apologized to Lynn millions of times of, hey, I forgot to order microwaves. Could you help me out with that? Just little things. So we just got so many good people trying so hard to get our schools ready for kids, and it just makes me proud to work with those people. So that is it for my report. Any questions?
Now, for high school.
Bennington High School, Greg Lamberty principal. Just a quick rundown. As you can see, we've surpassed 1,000 kids. So we'll have over 1,000 in the building. Next Wednesday, we estimate that we have roughly 750-ish come through on registration schedule pickup last Tuesday and Wednesday. So a good number through. I know our counselors have been busy trying to change some schedules and adjust some things and keep class sizes where we hope to keep them. Athletics started today, official practice today for softball, volleyball, football, cross country, girls golf. And as crazy as it seems, girls golf and softball will start official contests a week from Thursday. So the other three wait until the 25th. And then the last plug would be for the band program. They do kind of a camp wrap up Thursday night at 8 o'clock. So if you want to come out and see a preview of what the marching band's up to at the stadium at 8 o'clock Thursday night. Thank you. Questions? Sorry, any questions?
Student services is next.
Thank you. Whitney Fagan, Director of Student Services. So as you can see, I added on our newly enrolled special education students thus far. So we have 44 new students coming that we know of with IEPs. Next, below that, with that increase, we also have a lot of increase in student services staff this year that will be onboarding, and then we start that tomorrow with all of our special education staff coming in for some trainings. And then below that are just some of the other staff development opportunities we provide across the student services department. Any questions?
Perfect. Curriculum, instruction, and assessment.
I'm going to highlight for you tonight the Hoagie Assistant Superintendent assessment is state assessments we took this spring, and we are moving to a through-year model for grades 3 through 8. So the students will be taking part of the state test in the fall, part in the winter, and finish it up in the spring. And that started off this year. We'll see scores from that first year sometime in September. And these scores this year will be used for federal accountability. So our district and our buildings will each be rated again. With new buildings coming on, just to give people a heads up, they will not be rated good or great because there are elements of the data that is missing as a brand new school. Because kids in that new building have not been together as a group. So we'll see some changes in the structure, that rating system as we move into the 22-23 school year. So lots of information in the report about professional learning and curriculum work that we've been doing all summer. But any questions I can answer for you tonight? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hogie. Dr. Hawk, highlights from superintendent notes.
Just a few of some of the items that we have in here will be covered in agenda items later down the road, but we did receive our LCAP, which is our insurance notification. We were one of 2 school districts in the state that will receive an award again, 2 years in a row for safety. And I commend both Mr. Edens and Mr. Wilson, who had those for us, but each building implementing procedures in place, taking care of not only students, but staff in that, and there is a little bit of savings that goes to the taxpayers that goes along with that. And just a reminder that there are membership meetings, and those are out, should have streamed an email. They are a little bit earlier this year, they're in August, and the one that is normally attended by the Metro is September 1 in La Vista.
Any questions for Dr. Hawk?
Well, I don't know who this question's for, but I'm just curious, do you think we'll have a replacement HAL instructor before school starts?
Do I think that?
Yeah, do we?
One of the things that we have to remember is, do I think we're going to have a replacement for the personnel that has been approved by the board? The answer is yes. Do I think we can make that quick turnaround in 2 weeks? That's to be determined. And so if we were to take, for example, somebody that was internal, then we may rob Peter to pay Paul. And in doing so, we may put more damage in the classroom than others. So we are working on that, and we hope to have a full program as advertised.
Any other questions for Dr. Hawk? Have I missed any reports this evening?
No, committee reports, to my knowledge, we've had some ad hoc, but no curriculum or business reports.
Indeed. So would you like to lead the construction report this evening, or would you like to invite Mr. Bird for an update?
I will allow Mr. Bird. Mike?
Good evening. Going through, we are getting ready for the start of school. So starting with the middle school, been out there all week, all last week and today. So at this point in time, cleaning up, interior finishes are being done. The DLR design team has been out there. We're currently doing punch lists for items that need to be corrected for the start of school. The district has already started moving in. Kids have been coming in along those lines. The gym floor was painted today for the gym lines that will be sealed up starting tomorrow, hopefully done by Wednesday. We are basically finishing up on the lower level, cleaning up and getting everything ready for the start of school. Elementary school being cleaned up right now. The district's been moving in. I believe there's a parent meeting tomorrow to get ready for. We punch listed, the DOR design team has been going through the academic wing. They've been dropping pads the contractor has in main areas, as the admin and the other areas. In most schools, the kitchens are, basically have been took out, items have been turned on. They'll be moving in food, I believe, starting on Wednesday. Everything's prepared for that. The sod will be going down tomorrow for the elementary school, just so everyone will see that it actually is going to, the school is going to open. We're getting everything prepared for that. The road is basically being finished up right now. They've had to remove a few panels, concrete panels, per the city's request. They've come out, done their review, and basically identified certain concrete that they did not deem accessible or, good. So they're having to replace all of those. That will be pulled out tomorrow. There still will be a few that they'll have to do again, but the road will be open for the start of school, coming from both military and from Rachel Snowden. The high school basically has been, is going through basically patching and punch lists at this point in time and getting itself ready for the start of school as well. Any questions?
One of the things that we're asked often is something that is not under our contract, and that is the opening of 168 between military and Rachel Snowden. We are involved in meetings. The last report I had was last Tuesday. They have laid a base asphalt covering, and now they're this week going to do the overlay all the way from military down to Rachel Snowden. It is the intent of the county to have that road open the first day of school. It may be a push, and there may be some work on the sides that will continue, but it is their intent to have that open on the first day of school. Mr. Bird, there's always a good look, and there are people in there, but do you believe that we're in line with certification to get into these buildings on a proper timeline?
Yes. Middle schools have already had 95% of all their reviews by city personnel, electrical inspectors, mechanical, and those. The elementary school is waiting for one last review, and that is by the city inspection, which is basically on hold until the road. In our plan right now is that hold will come off of the elementary this Friday, which means that the review by the city should happen prior to the start of school and she get approval. We've already had him in and he's looked at it. He just said, I can't give you anything until we pull that hold. It's a paperwork matter at this point in time.
Are there any other major items with the elementary school that are not going to be done before the first day of school?
We are currently looking at a couple small items such as operable partition walls that might come in towards the end of August. And then I believe the district is working with their playground equipment. And that is kind of tentative whether it's going to be done right at the beginning of the school or just.
Mr. Burke, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The farmer in me has me wishing for rain, except for a narrow strip along 168 between Rachel Snowden and military. We do have a coordinator report this evening, and that is for transportation and facilities. Mr. Edens, thank you.
All right, Jeremy Edens, Coordinator of Facilities and Transportation. My PowerPoint tonight's about transportation updates. So far, all of the routes except for one have been able to segregate by age groups. So we will no longer have elementary students riding with high school seniors except for one bus route. My goal next year is to try and get it all the way separated, but we're pretty proud of ourselves for being able to do that. Another thing that does for us is it reduces the traffic of buses in the 168th Street area. So we have looking at 5 buses that are going to service the middle school and the high school. So only 5 buses will be on 168th and Bennington Road. Only 4 buses will need to be in the 168th military area. So all in all, pretty good so far on our routing. We have 9 drivers. We have 14 routes. So we still have 5 positions open. Special education has been pretty busy for us. We have 2 additional new drivers because we opened a new preschool, and then we also increased our special education population. So just some quick numbers, we've got 48 students in that category, and our bus drivers will be driving 313 miles a day just in special education routes. So currently right now, we have 739 students. I'm expecting 900. If I look back statistically in my notes from last year, the first day, or August 6th, we were at 713, and then the first day of school, we were at 802. So history says there's still 100 kids out there that need to register. Any questions?
And to register for the bus, is it just when you go in and for verification, or is there another step that someone needs to take?
Just student verification.
Just student verification, when they check that box, they're set.
Correct.
Okay.
One of the other things that we're doing as a district is, if you saw the Friday notes that went out last week, we are having a job fair, and that is for certified or support staff, classified or support staff. And we've patterned that after other districts. Other districts have done the same, and we hope to gather more applications with that, not only for bus routes, and you'll see an agenda item later in the meeting that we can address those bus routes, but support staff and food service, maintenance, as well as paraprofessionals. So Mr. Edens is highlighting certainly transportation, but we have those needs elsewhere as well.
Any other, before you go, any other transportation questions? I know from a facility standpoint, always a summer maintenance schedule, just wanted to kind of check in on the good work that you and your team do on that front and how things are wrapping up before the start of school.
Summer work went probably pretty quickly. So our painting crew got finished a week early. We went ahead and released them so they can get ready because they're also food service workers for the district. I don't have exact numbers, but I think we had around 200 work orders this summer from the teachers and staff that submitted them. And last time I checked, we were 100% complete on that. That's it.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now a spotlight report on summer school.
I'd just like to introduce our summer school directors to you. We had 4 sites for summer school this year. We held 2 elementary buildings. So Alex Busma was the director at Bennington Elementary that served both Heritage and Bennington Elementary. And Abby Fitzgerald has been a director for us for 3 years and took care of Pine Creek building, which served both Anchor Point and Pine Creek. This is our first full year of 2 sites operating, and so the directors will share some news with you.
We tried to give you a few highlights on the little handout there, just because those have some nice numbers. We gave you a lot more data in that very long report, but I know Dr. Hock will want us to be expedient and not go through the entire document. Our numbers were a little smaller this year at 2 buildings than they were last year. We did have, our attendance was down and we had a lot more students drop out just prior to the start of summer school. And we talked through already some ways to work through that next year, maybe increasing our number of invitations beyond that 10 per classroom, so that way if we have dropouts, we can still offer slots to as many students as possible. We were unable to offer all of the students on the list a spot as we were last year when we are having one very large location, and that is due to not having enough teachers interested in teaching summer school, but we still were able to offer 232 students a spot between those 2 buildings, which is pretty comparable to last year's 249. As far as the students we had there, it was a very positive experience. You can see that both the teachers and the paras and the parents considered it a very beneficial experience for the students, as well as a positive experience. 100% of students saw growth on at least one assessment from the beginning of summer school to the end of summer school. 100% of students also had one score that was in the proficient or advanced category for between the reading and math assessments, which is pretty great educational data there. We again were able to host that book fair, sponsored by the Bennington Foundation. We gave just shy of 1,800 books away to those students as an attendance incentive, which seeing all of those students at the book fair on the last day picking up books, it's kind of like Christmas or another great holiday when they walk out of it and get back. It's pretty wonderful. We're so thankful for that. Pretty similar number of classrooms. We had the same number of classrooms this year as we did last year. We had teachers in Paris spread throughout the buildings. But again, just hoping to get a few more teachers added next year and also work on some of those attendance numbers and how we can get that back up to a higher percentage where people are coming for a higher percentage, not missing so many days, and where we don't have those numbers back out right before summer school starts to make sure we can maximize our invitations that we're able to give. What questions do you have for us?
I don't have any questions, educators, because you answered them so beautifully in your infographics. Thank you for my bookmark. I'm super excited to use it in that way. And I just wanted to underscore those really remarkable data points, including also that nearly all parents felt that summer school was a positive experience for their students. So I'm sure there's some trepidation in some cases. Oh, my student wants to be in summer school. It's summer after all. And I just love that that is a really important data point that says this is a positive experience for my child. So I love that, as well as the data points you highlighted about 100% of students enrolled obtained at least one proficiency score, and all of them saw growth on at least one of their assessments. Like, amazing, and congratulations to you and your teams. I really love that, and seeing that growth of students and the investment you're making this summer. So well done. Thank you for that. Thank you. We also put some cute pictures of students in the back if you need a little. Happy to do
Thank you. Thank you very much. I believe that concludes our reports, as we do not have a strict,
We have middle school, summer school
oh,
as well, and high school.
I'm sorry, I always, I think I did that last month too. I got all lathered up about the elementary, and so Mr. Appleback, please.
Lucas Alphabet, Assistant Principal Activities Director at Bennington South Middle School. I served as our middle school summer school director in June. We embraced on the theme Wildlife Safari and had students participate in a variety of activities around safari themes, such as we had wildlife encounters from Kretnik present to students so they were able to get up close and personal with some unique and uncommon animals. Students were also able to participate on virtual zoo trips and do some different activities around animals. We then culminated that project by having students create a presentation on an animal of their choice that tied together the three subject areas we focused on at our summer school in reading, writing, and math. And so students were able to present to their peers on the last day of summer school and celebrate with some Kona ice. We offered almost 120 students were invited to participate in summer school. We ended up having 34 students attend summer school with the grade breakdown below. Approximately 41% of those students who participated in summer school were on an IEP. As Dr. Hoagie mentioned earlier, Nebraska is in the preliminary transition and with NSCAS growth. This was a great tool that we utilized this school year. It really allowed us to break down individual student scores and identify areas that students missed, which allowed us to develop our curriculum for summer school. We did implement a co-teaching model again this summer school, which allowed our staff to work with students on a one-on-one basis or work on small group while having another certified staff member in the classroom. We also took a pre and post test assessment that you can see up on the screen, and that we had over almost 90% of growth of students who showed growth, excuse me. And then on our last page for our student survey data, we found that almost 70% of students strongly agreed that they learned something new and that the information presented will be beneficial for the upcoming school year. I cannot thank our summer school staff enough. One of the big reasons as well that students enjoyed summer school was because of our staff. We've been very fortunate enough to have staffing completed at the middle school level, so very thankful for that and our summer school staff. Moving forward, future considerations, I would agree that our summer school timeline makes sense. When we get closer to the end of June, that's when you're starting to see 8th graders who are getting a little maybe preoccupied with upcoming sports seasons. the high school level, and different camps are happening at that time. So keeping our same time frame of the 3 weeks closer to the start of June would be ideal. And then our numbers for the last 2 years have been relatively similar. If we want to increase that number, transportation is something that should be considered by the district. If we want to maximize or open that number to a larger population, a majority of the families that were invited declined because of transportation issues. Any questions?
Once again, no questions, but since I share my favorite data points from our elementary educators, I wanted to thank you for sharing the amazing table again around the growth of students who attended. Most students seeing growth, particularly in math, so those are my favorite data points there. And I also really love that you took student feedback and that you see 8 in 10 of your students saying that educators made the activities fun and enjoyable. So again, kudos to your team for making an engaging experience in the summer. Well done.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Now for the high school. Summer school.
Still Greg Lamberty, school principal at Bennington High School. And unfortunately, we didn't, our theme at the high school was less talk, more action. So, I listened to the elementary and middle school stuff, it sounded like so much fun. June and July, we ran 3 weeks of time in June. We ran 2 weeks of time in July. June had a morning session and an afternoon session, so 8 to 11 and then 12 to 3. As you go down the first table, you'll see probably the most important piece to me and to our staff is that final column, on track for graduation. So we had 4 seniors that didn't meet the May deadline. We were able to get one of those 4 across the finish line. So we had a young man earn his diploma. He was given that the second he completed his community service with Mr. Edens. So the other 3 are in fact wanting to continue their time with Bennington Public Schools. So we've designed their schedule in a manner that hopefully allows them to get their diploma sometime during the first semester of the upcoming school year. As you go through the rest of those numbers, 25 and 9 is, I believe, 34, plus 10 is 44. So we were able to get 44 kids back on track, meaning that they're in the mix to meet their graduation deadline in May. So the second table kind of shows you the number of credits, the bottom line there. 73 credits were earned over the past summer. That's down 20. I would like to argue that that's actually a good thing, meaning that we have less kids in summer school, which is ultimately what we want. Meaning they're not in summer school because they don't need classes. So again, a big thank you goes out to our staff. For those of you, just a reminder, we are a retroactive program. So in most cases, the kid will have failed their class, whether it's physical science, English, algebra, or a social studies class. And those are the courses we focus on. And it is an online program. So about halfway down, you'll see Mrs. Fortin, Mrs. Honeywell, Mr. Codeney, Mrs. Bruning, Mrs. Barbie, which is Miss Wynn, Mrs. Carter, Mrs. Holt, and Mr. Thomas, or a former student who was working on being a teacher, came back and helped us out this summer. So thank you to all of those folks. Questions for me?
Lest you feel left out, Mr. Lamberty, thank you for that ongoing engagement with every one of our students and for the increased credits that so many of them have. I love reading that again. So well done to your team too.
I appreciate it. Our staff deserves the credit. Thank you. Did we have any other constituency attend summer school? Okay. Then we shall move on to unfinished business. The first item, which is consideration of construction change orders. We do have a few. Dr. Hoff, can you?
Yes, these are construction/design issues. The first 2 are minimal, related to the middle school. The next 2 are obviously a little bit larger. One is on Woody Street, additional work to revise. Most of this is through the city. And as they continue to rise, and then the other one is the stadium expansion. This one was the inlets, this is the storm drains. Once that is exposed, we saw the damage, or how would I say, once they were exposed, we saw the condition they were in and thought it best as they were exposed to replace those. So those are the 2 large costs that go along with that. In total, we're looking at approximately $100,000, $103,000. This is covered, there is contingency funds in each of the programs, and so this is not above and beyond budget.
I move to approve all items listed for construction project change orders for a cost of $103,483.18, including CCRs 35, 36, and 37 for Bennington South Middle School, CCR 4 for the elementary and middle school roads, and CCR 7 for the high school site expansion.
Second.
Thank you, Allison. Is there discussion or questions on change orders?
Can you just clarify, did I hear you say this is not in addition to, but it's in contingency fund?
That's correct. It's a contingency budget that goes with each project.
Other questions?
What was the change on the Whitney? That was by the city. You said?
Right, design.
Got it.
Hearing no further questions, Jody, please call the roll.
Allison?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes. Motion carries. Next, we'll consider several policy revisions. First reading on these policies was in the July meeting. This would be the second reading and approval of these. I believe, Dr. Hawk, correct me if I'm wrong, all the changes here would have been statutory and treasure, is that correct?
That's correct. When the unicameral sign and die in May, the bills go to the governor. If they're signed by the governor, typically they'll take place July 1 or July 31. And so some of these are mandatory either through federal, which is rules and regulations, or through state statute. So these are revisions to existing policies that you have in place.
Thank you.
I move to revise policies 204.10, agenda 204.11, meeting minutes, 204.12, public comment and board meetings, 702.02, budget planning preparation and schedules, 702.03, budget adoption process, 902.02, construction plans and specifications, and 902.04, bids and awards for construction contracts.
I'll second.
Thank you, Valerie. And that's a second by Kara. Questions or comments?
These are the ones we discussed last month, correct? Yeah, we individualized them, but we discussed them.
So there were a set of policies that we had special hearings on that were heard and approved in the last meeting. And then the second set is the statutory items.
Right. Yes.
Other questions? Jody, please call the roll.
Kara?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Motion carries. In a similar vein, we have policies that would be additions at essentially the behest of state statute as well, is that correct?
State statute and departments of labor. So these are either through court cases, through new state statutes, or federal rules and guidelines. So these are not in the current manual, but will be added with a motion.
Thank you. I move to add policies 204.13 virtual conferencing during an emergency, 402.20 vacation, and 508.17 seizure safe schools.
Second. Go ahead, Heather.
I believe that was Allison.
Allison.
Thank you. Discussion? Jody, please call the roll.
Allison?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes. Motion carries. Now proceeding new business. Our first item of new business is consideration of a rescission and nullification of the approval of a site purchase and sale agreement for real property located near North 132nd Street and Rainwood Road. Dr. Hawk, could you again, for clarity, describe the process by which the board approved a motion to proceed with the site purchase and what is compelling us to consider rescission.
Yes, our legal counsel prepared what is very standard for the board to look at in terms of a resolution that would allow the executives of the board and the superintendent to execute a contract in the best interest of the district. Through public forums, through many different entities, professionals, and other stakeholders, it has been deemed at this point in time not to follow through with the execution of that land contract. Therefore, we do have a motion before the board to rescind that and nullifies the motion that was passed in July of 18. So the motion is before the board at this point in time.
I move that the Board of Education of this school district hereby rescinds and nullifies in its entirety the motion and incorporated resolution approved at the July 18 special meeting related to the purchase of approximately 78.46 acres of real property, generally located southeast of the intersection of North 132nd Street and Rainwood Road, identified at Agenda Item 2, and further authorizes and directs the board president, superintendent of schools, or designee of either to take all necessary and appropriate action to carry this rescission and nullification into effect.
Second.
Thank you, Allison. Is there discussion on this motion?
I would just like to comment to the public to thank you guys for coming out to the meetings we hosted up at the school and for voicing your concerns. I think it's very, very important that we keep the public included on these huge decisions that we're making. And I do appreciate everything that you guys have done. Thank you very much.
I would agree, and I think to note on the vote and us making that vote the last meeting was in order that we could put it out to the public to consider. Because without that vote, we couldn't really tell you about it or give you that option in order to get your feedback. So that's a little bit about what the vote was about as well, was that we could get it out there. Again, we appreciate everyone's feedback on it. So.
I would echo those sentiments. Again, I think in the public forums, the reasons the board had for advancing this site for public consideration were clear. I won't reiterate them. What also became clear through those forums was that the community was not comfortable with that site. And so this action is a response to that. As folks have noted this evening, this is an important and significant decision for our community. We have invited feedback and we will continue to invite feedback. We'll be looking to have other information sessions as we proceed on the path. And certainly I can attest to the fact that a number of you have discovered my email address. And certainly welcome to keep feedback coming to any member of the board or the administration on this process. Is there any further discussion? Cody, please, a reminder that a vote yes is for rescission and an end to the purchase agreement. Jody, please call the roll.
Allison?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes. Motion carries. Next week. Next, we would like to review the agenda item says facility survey results, but we also have summary from public forum feedback as well that we'd like to cover. So Dr. Hovey, appreciate you kind of walking us through the highlights of both of those items.
Absolutely. So we'll start with the bond survey that was conducted by Northwall Consulting for us. The board contracted with this firm in order to gather information using a scientific process, which was a combination of a phone survey as well as a text survey where people could reach in and respond through a text message. So just as an overview of the information about the survey, we provided all of our registered voters' information was included in this survey and then randomly selected so that we would have a 95% confidence that this is a representative group of our voter population, and we are very confident that this would represent the voters of our community. And so 465 surveys were validated, and that means that from the demographic information gathered from the survey responses, we could match that with voters registered in our community, so that there was a great deal of confidence that we had actual Bennington voters that were participating in this. The data was gathered from July 11th through July 14th. There was some hoopla out there that you could find the link to the text survey and that was shared out on social media. Those links were not live, and so no surveys that were submitted after it closed on July 14th were counted in this survey. So we needed that to keep it scientific so that we could use that confidence level. So 80% of our results came through mobile phone texts and 20% through actual phone interviews. So what did we hear from that? We have the data from each question and it breaks it down from excellent to good to fair to poor. And we are giving you those overall feedback areas. So the quality of education in our district, over 90% of our respondents believe that we serve a good or excellent education. We included the average that's been done by this firm in Nebraska. And so that is about 88, 89%. So we're right at that, a little above that. Another indicator was the quality of the education in Bennington compared to other surrounding districts. The survey respondents said much better and somewhat better, nearly over 93% felt very confident in that quality of education. They had responded on quality of facilities. You'll see excellent and good, 87%, which is higher than you will find in the average of area surveys that have been done with other school districts. The importance of Bennington schools to our community, very important and somewhat important. Again, 90% of the respondents feel very committed to our schools and the role they play. We asked about the confidence in our superintendent and the confidence in the Board of Education. And overall, they could pick a lot or some, and over 60% were confident in both the superintendent and the board. And that is comparable to other surveys that are done in the area as well. Other perceptions that we were able to pull from that survey, people feel like our schools are positive and welcoming in our district. People believe that they have confidence when we say that we need facility improvements. They strongly agree with that. As our buildings age, it's important to keep them up to date and strong maintenance program going. Almost 60% of respondents agree with that. Building new schools for growth, 60% strongly or somewhat agree to that statement. That the district is a good steward of tax dollars, strongly agree, somewhat agree is about 38, 39%, and neutral response was about 30% on that. part of the survey was asking what the community would support in different types of facilities being added into the bond as potential pieces that might get included. Overall, most of the respondents were pretty positive about the different types of athletic expansions or updates for those. There was a question if people would support the building of a second high school, 68%.